Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear students, my name is Michael Schulze. I'm a visual artist and I hold the chair in sculptural design in the Faculty of Architecture at the RWTH University in Germany. I am very delighted and thankful for the opportunity to talk to you at this prominent university. Let me now elaborate the elementary components of my artistic education, and this includes concrete results from my almost 30 years of experience, practical and theoretical. The focus of my teaching obviously lies on conveying to students competences in sculptural design. In my talk, I would like to discuss and shed light on these competences. These competences are a part of the total picture of a shaper and can be subsumed in the term generalist. Here is an overview of my topics. First, imagination, the ability to mentally transform. Features and attributes in the context of artistic education, as well as perception and imagination, as significant and individual skills in the profile of the designer. Topic 2. Idea and the work concept as inseparable constants in the teaching of sculptural design. I will try to describe why this pair of terms must never be separated, since it has an elementary meaning only as a pair in the education of design, and thus also in the practice of the designer. Of course, this topic also addresses the fascination of creating, as well as the discovery of creative worlds of forms. Connected with this are the uplifting moments of aesthetic experience and aesthetic decisions about form and material. In the best case, even the poetry. Topic 3. Freedom and play. Play is older than culture. Animals didn't wait for humans to learn how to play, claimed the Dutch culture historian Johan Huizinga in his book Homo Ludens. During the process of playing, it thus seems that something joins the game. This something goes beyond the immediate urge of self-preservation, giving meaning to engaging in life. There is a frequently quoted statement by the German dramatist and philosopher Friedrich Schiller. He wrote, "Humans are only entirely humans when they play." In this sense, I often think about how nice it would be if I could encounter this sentence in the exam regulations of our faculty, in the Higher Education Act, or in a government declaration. Unfortunately, this is only wishful thinking, since workaholic Germany always seems to have a problem with the category of playing, except for football. For Friedrich Schiller, at any rate, humans only rose above nature through aesthetic play by creating their own cultural reality as a symbol of internal and external freedom. Following this principle, at our Department of Sculptural Design, we use a teaching format that opens the door to playing and freedom. Let's begin with my first topic. Imagination, the ability to mentally transform. Perception is usually the key term when talking about design. So I will start with a little personal story that impressed me whenever people speak of perception and attention. The academic wars of ideology and opinions lose their significance with this story. Suddenly, something like elementary intuition bonds with archaic down to earthness, making one questions one's own position. I hope that you will feel similarly after the anecdote. Here is a story. In the Brazilian jungle, Amazonia, natives were discovered who had never encountered white people before. When the village was viewed, wooden sculptures were discovered that greatly resembled flying or bird-like objects. With the help of sign language, the natives made it clear that large birds flew over the village on a daily basis. It soon turned out that the birds were from an airline. Not understanding the real phenomenon, the natives interpreted these plants as unknown or sacred symbols and reconstructed them with their own means. Well, some people might laugh in civilizational arrogance at these natives, but the natives' fresh perceptual behavior is deeply connected with a sense of true fullness that I would like to see as a leitmotif in how we deal with the world. Because this behavior addresses an important aspect of human culture behavior, namely imagination as a capability of mentally transforming, for example, transforming trees into gods, or, like in the previous story, plants into bird-like sculptures, formulating it very abstractly from state A to state B. The modern Western worldview assumes a radical division between subject and object. Animism, however, does not know any separation between nature and culture. Nature's objects are experienced as living, somehow subjectivizing them. The modern West thinks this view was overcome long ago, but the objective reality of things is often missed because there is a psychological mechanism attached to things that are accepted at most in the arts and in religion. Thus, animism only seemingly contradicts a sophisticated and rational view of the world. After all, modern man fetishized many things, considering them more significant than they are by definition. Merely consider cars, the computer, or the cell phone. This means that we are deeply situated in a real contradiction. The designer also has to confront this contradiction. You could even say that the designer in particular is obliged to develop an animistic perception toward things in order to transfer them from one entity into another and to ascribe a new and individual reality or an ensoulment to the objects he creates. Without creativity, without imagination, without challenging our vision, we can't be called humans, since we would not differ from other living beings. But what does this mean for artistic education? In our image flooded, hectic time, it is hard, if not even impossible, to activate a naive and fresh view. Due to their socialization, our clientele, the students in particular, are affected more powerfully by this than older people are. When I speak of naivety, I mean something positive, in the sense of impartiality, free of mental fetters, with the power of individuality. A position able to face a phenomenon neutrally and independent of one's knowledge, being open for individual discoveries and inventions. In the subjective artist process of design, the terms idea and work concept determine a designer's process as much as they do a sculptor's. Both work on the idea of space with forms and materials. Not only this, they also share this space. The only difference, the sculptor usually works with his own hands. The architects or designers often let specialists from industry do the production. Nevertheless, not only do they have to be familiar with the process of craftsmanship, they have also to know it physically, not only to communicate with craftsmen, but also to guarantee a technical and creatively successful transfer to the planned project. The semantic, haptic and tactile qualities, as well as the specific materials resistance, have to be known in order to be able to plan and design with it. That is why we concentrate our practices on a pooling of the various requirements in order to consider the mutual dependence of idea and work concept. Seen in this way, idea and work concept are two sides of a coin. As a singular, each component would wither in one-sidedness. Another pair of terms that mirror this mutual belonging and dependence is ability and proficiency, since skill requires both features. Personal abilities are basically congenital. They are potential assets as essential features of a human being. These features are not static, though they can be expanded and encouraged, but at the same time they can also fade. The same holds true for proficiency. It designates learned or acquired shares of operative actions. For example, it describes how one deals with tools, manual motor skills, physical efforts, etc. Both features are the preconditions for the realization of, for example, an artwork, a piece of music, or an architecture. That is why I see the greatest potential in tasks that combine the abilities and proficiencies of conceptual and technical aspirations for the students, and that create space for individual means of expression. In 1997, at the beginning of my position as a professor in the Department of Sculptural Design, I found it important to set up various studios that are specific to different materials, where contact and operation with materials and forms can be practiced. Along with traditional sculpting materials like plaster, clay and stone, I considered it important to expand this spectrum to include metal, wood, plastics, ceramic, glass and concrete. Well, these workshops have proven themselves, and the students prize them and speak of a renaissance of craftsmanship. The individual competences in dealing with space, form, material are of great relevance for architects, designers and other aesthetic specialists. Especially today, conveying and reinforcing precisely these competences has gained in importance. Why is that? Because computer-guided programs alone are not able to convey these elementary abilities. That's why my opinion is that the competences of perception and haptic and semantic knowledge in dealing with material are the very first precondition for successfully using the digital tools of design. That is why the pre-arrangement to the instructions of sculptural design have a special importance. We are in the middle of change of paradigms concerning dealing with concepts of space and depiction, but also of production processes. The possibilities of imagination and representation are expanding enormously. The dynamics of application generate unforeseen visions of concrete, formative elements in space. And that is how we try to use analog methods as well as digital tools for design. I will show you a 25-second video clip now. We were in the so-called cave, an absolutely virtual room of the IT center at the RWTH in Aachen, the largest cave in Europe, as I found out. There were different menus and tools with which you could spray spatial 3D material into the room. I have to say, this medium is perfectly suited for one-by-one spatial simulations in the fields of architecture, design or product design. A fascinating experience that truly broadens one's perception. The collective work with the students sometimes develops special qualities and reminds me of the medieval construction shades. Why? During some projects we lived together outside of the university for a while, enabling us to learn from each other. The failure of a single action requires immediate counter-responses that are discussed and realized together. The decision on a collective concept is more or less democratic. First, individual drafts are created, but then the students rank the drafts and the best one is realized in full size. Experiencing such processes and methods, especially today with all our digital possibilities, provides insights that expand aesthetic behavior and give rise to new points of view. Now we will see a short video clip about a great moment in which the air-inflated structure Hinkelstein or Minier is inflated for the first time after a week of cutting it to size and gluing it. Topic 3: Freedom and Play. Under this heading, we practice a playful format of teaching called impromptu design. Criteria of craftsmanship and applications suited to the material take a backseat to the spontaneity and visualization of conceptual ideas. In this format, seemingly crazy, intelligent, impossible, funny, strange, grotesque or absurd ideas can be developed and realized in a loose and improvised way within the context of a predetermined topic. Here, spontaneous, actionist, performative and sometimes poetic components meet. Also, as practice for a more complex project topic for the bachelor's or master's degree, impromptu design can provide great service, since its open methods activates the skills of intuition, power of deduction and originality. Usually, the students are offered a time frame of 6 weeks from the assignment to the deadline for submitting the impromptu design. Since we are following the demand for freedom and play, we focus in the first year on the ability of imagine and invent in a playful way. Every game needs rules, so it's why an exercise requires firm preconditions to counteract arbitrariness. Thus, the aesthetic decision needs a regulation in which creative possibilities are revealed so that the students can find his or her own individual aesthetic system. The rules do offer security not only for the students but also for us, the teachers, and the sense of comparability and subsequent grading. In the process of design, we teachers act somewhat like lawyers. This means that we intervene only if the students ignore their own rules or violate them without a good reason. Forms manifest themselves out of the logic of the concept and the material by using the self-imposed criteria in this system. Of course, features of contingency, that means breaches by factors like randomness or material-specific resistance, play a role in the process of finding forms. These can be very helpful when they are adopted with openness and accordance with the student's own criteria. To conclude my talk, I would like to present some final bachelor's and master projects in the area of stage design. The projects that you are going to see were closely accompanied by the City Theatre of Aachen and several dramaturgists, theatre scholars and scenographers that I invited for presentations and colloquia. In addition, we have an excellent collection of theatre science material and Cologne. Visiting this collection has become a standard procedure in our concept of teaching. The degree to which stage design and architecture are both determined by the idea of staying it's shown, not least, in the fact that many architects have also been gifted stage designers. Consider the German architects Karl Friedrich Schinkel, Hans Pölzig, Fritz Schumacher and many more. They represent the close connection between architecture and its ephemeral sister, the transient art of stage design. there is something I observe again and again. In the contemporary education of architects, the alliance with technology often stands in the foreground, while unfortunately the art of stage design is often neglected. Although it represents a real professional perspective and an interesting field of activity, as I have been told by many alumni. So, now you have a little insight into our artistic education. I understand it as a transfer benefit to the design fields in architecture. Beyond that, it supports the development of a holistic attitude. In our education, we do not assume that we produce art, but only that we follow a creative aim with the help of artistic methods. Namely, design is subject to different patterns of acquisition and interpretations from those of the free arts. The free arts pose questions that do not need to be answered. Design, however, should answer questions. Design assumes that aesthetic are not an exception, but the basis for an order. See, in this way, I understand design as a science of artistic methods directed toward a practical aim. Thank you very much for your attention.